Now, President Bola Tinubu has dismissed the widely held belief that the nation's economy is in a crisis. President Tinubu's comment comes on the heels of nationwide protests by Nigerians over the economic crisis and hardship that culminated in a nationwide protest organized by the Nigerian Labour Congress last week. Now, several protests have rocked some Nigerian cities in the past weeks in Lagos, Niger, Oyo, Sokoto, Kaduna, Kano, Taraba, Osun, and Kogi states, among others, with some of the protests leading to the looting of government and private food warehouses. Now, some angry Nigerians, including hoodlums, have also attacked trucks conveying food items to various destinations, after which they looted food items being transported. Now, President Tinubu has, however, urged Nigerians to remain patient as his administration's economic reforms begin to take effect gradually, promising a more stable and prosperous future for the nation. The presidency has also blamed opposition political parties for sponsoring some of the protests to achieve a political agenda. Well, for more on this, I'm glad to be joined in the studio by the national chairman of the Social Democratic Party, Shehu Gabam. Now, the SDP is the fourth largest political party in Nigeria at the moment, and he will help us to understand the president's views. But of course, let's listen to the Minister of Information and National Orientation while he was representing President Tinubu during an event in Abuja where he made that statement.
It may be true that Nigeria has accepted grains from Ukraine, but that is not on its own a very bad story. Egypt takes in about 60% of its grain production from Ukraine. And I know that our elder statesman here, Mr. Peter Obi, is also understanding the Egyptian economy. The fact that 60% of the grain production in Egypt is coming from Ukraine does not make Egypt a failed state. In addition, the revenues accruing to the three tiers of government, the federal, state, and local government, have grown by between 50% and 100% since the removal of fuel subsidy. This means more funds are available to directly impact the lives of Nigerians through investments in critical infrastructure, social security, and other areas.
Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris there, while representing President Bola Tinubu. Well, I come to you now, Shehu Gabam. How do you react? I mean, the government says opposition political parties have been so hard on the government. I mean, just yesterday, you could hear the government reacting to Peter Obi's claims that it's shameful for Nigeria under President Bola Tinubu to actually be receiving donations of wheat from Ukraine, which is a war-torn country at the moment.
Well, first, let me sympathize with my very good friend, the Minister of Information. When you find yourself in a very precarious situation, certainly there will be bubbles in terms of responding to critical national issues. The presidency itself, the president and the commander-in-chief admitted that there's a crisis, and he takes responsibility. About a week ago or thereabout, when he had a meeting with Afenifere in Lagos, he explained himself very clearly. He admitted
in Ondo, to be specific.
In Ondo, sorry, yes, in Ondo, very clearly. Two, the National Assembly, that have a duty to make laws and regulate and oversight function, admitted clearly, the Senate President, that generated a lot of controversy and even backlash from some governors, saying that he's not saying the truth. And then the governors themselves have been busy containing massive protests. People volunteered for that protest simply because they cannot afford basic food to eat. The first state that shut down completely was Niger State, his own state, the Minister of Information. Coincidentally, I happened to be around the area that day. The situation is beyond description. And the state, executive of the state, Niger, admitted that the situations are very bad. There's no decent man, no decent politician that will be part of pulling down the roof, especially when the nation is in a very fragile stage. Virtually everything is very fragile right now. The economy is very fragile. The security apparatus is very fragile. There's weaponization of poverty. There's lack of cash. And there's no even food available. When you say there is food, then where is it? If there is food, can people afford it? So the difference is not much. Between, yes, there is food available, but we don't have the money to buy the food. Then what will be the next line of action? It's anarchy. And this is what we are running away from. I'm happy you make a description of Ukraine. Ukraine is in the war. They still supply foods. What justification does Nigeria have not to go into massive agricultural projects? What is the Ministry of Agriculture doing in Abuja? Why can't you decentralize the Ministry of Agriculture into the 6 geopolitical zones? Why don't you come up with supplementary budget to go in? Government should invest in farming because of this type of period that the government will find himself very difficult to extricate out of it. Look, it is not anybody wish to have a country that has been terribly demarketed. It is not the fault of entirely the president. The president inherited a collapsed system. We mentioned it day one. But what we are saying, that in applying policies and principles that have massive implication on the citizens, you have to exercise caution. You have to deal with it stage by stage. When the former president presented the budget before the National Assembly, and clearly he mentioned that he cannot continue to fund subsidy, it is a prerogative of the incoming president to review that decision. He has the power to review it and send a supplementary budget to the National Assembly and decide to say, out of the 40% subsidy that we are paying, I will remove 10%, and then I will study the effects of the 10% that I removed. And we'll look at the way forward. But in the lump sum, you just chalked out the entire thing out, and you have no prepared fallback position. And when that decision was taken, to the best of my knowledge, there was no any political appointee, there was no any minister to think of, let us put our head together, let's put our brain together, let's look at the possibilities and the consequences of this decision that we are going to take. And in any case, it's rational to say that if you remove subsidy on petroleum, what is natural is to apply subsidy on education, apply subsidy on agriculture, apply subsidy on transportation sector that will alleviate the suffering of the people. Now, no matter how you want to farm, the cost of fertilizer is beyond the purchasing power of an average farmer. I have farm rice, I'm a farmer, I know how much I pay to buy fertilizer. It is practically impossible for people who believe in farming, who normally farm, for food to feed their own family, not commercial quantity, but today they cannot afford it. I can tell you, a lot of people sold their farm even before it got to a stage of maturity. They sold it out.
All right. Well, interesting submission you've got here. But let's take a holistic look at it. Aren't the opposition political parties supposed to help in nation building? I mean, politics is over. It looks like the government is saying that those of you who are in the opposition have refused to let go of the political season and get into governance mode, and everything you are politicizing it, including the economy.
It is not true. Let me tell you. If this government will be fair to the opposition parties, we stood very firmly on the day of the election, the announcement of the presidential election. There were a lot of attempts to subvert that process. But we, the parties, came together. We say, no, we choose a democracy. And INEC is a product of the law. They are empowered to conduct election, count the vote, and declare the winner. If you subvert this process at the point of counting and declaring a winner, what is next is anarchy. So we told virtually everyone to stay put and support INEC to conclude the process. So number one, day one, the parties were together in supporting democracy to prevail. Number two, virtually a lot of parties, first I was the first party to address a press conference and said that, look, we cannot bring down this country. Elections have taken place. Those who disagree should go to God. Let us challenge our justice system and let's allow the judiciary to determine who is the winner, and then we settle down. Number three, we have advised this government, try to run a government of inclusivity, because nobody have a monopoly of knowledge and wisdom. And from the take-off, you know that APC have a deficiency in their policies and program during the former administration of Buhari. It was unprecedented. And so you need a ingenuity to come up with economic policies and program and to create political environment that is inviting, to create that atmosphere, that friendship for people to rally around you. Despite that, this government do not extend hands of friendship to any political party that I know. apart from few of the PDP.
But let's be very clear.
members.
When you say extending a hand of fellowship, what exactly are you talking about?
What I'm talking about...
Is it forming an all-inclusive government, a government of national unity, or what?
It's not compulsory. It's his own discretion. What we owe him is to advise him on what to do, because we are key players in the system. And then we can generate ideas. That ideas can be debated robustly. Now, what we expect from the president after winning this election, after settling down, is to have even one-on-one meeting with the other political parties, have the feelings of what is going on. Despite the fact that he has been in the opposition before, he understands what opposition is, he campaigned on some basic issues. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, just the way Buhari campaigned on about major issues. One of them is subsidy. During his campaign, he said subsidy was a fraud because he was commissioner of petroleum. But he lived under that fraud for 8 years without removing the subsidy. He transferred that aggression of subsidy to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And then President Bola Ahmed Tinubu took the silver bullets and went ahead and removed it. And now the bashing and the collapse of the system, the incoherence of the decisions, are responsible for what is happening today, including the insecurity that we are going on, including the judicial pronouncement that do not help in stabilizing the government. Because when there is lack of justice and equity and fairness, the insecurity escalates all over the place. So, but despite that, we don't have any other country except Nigeria.
Yeah, so are you ready as opposition political parties to help in nation building at the moment? Because if the government is lacking ideas, I mean, shouldn't it be normal for it to have a bipartisan approach to issues of security, to issues of economy, to the issues of development, issues of food, scarcity and all of that?
In fairness to us, we've been contributing. We've not been extreme in our expressions in advising this government. These are steps you should take. Now, the government declared emergency on food. This president declared emergency on food. Now, if you declare emergency on food, the simple component is that you will subsidize fertilizer, agricultural equipment, tractors and other. Every state will have access to it. All farmers throughout the Federation of Nigeria will have access to it at a very subsidized rate. And then you created the environment or the latitude for farmers to farm at a very large scale. Don't forget, not too long ago, we are feeding the entire West African coast. And then when you have a population of almost 250 million, you cannot feed them. The population will turn against the nation. It's a normal theory all over the world. What causes war is hunger, frustration, injustice all over the world. And to avert that means that the government policy must shift, a radical shift from the normal way of running governance. Nigerians of today and the social media factor that is playing role in governance all over the world, it means that you have no hiding place. What you need to do is to develop a transparent policy, that will help the country to stabilize. For instance, look at the floating of the currency. All over the world, when you float your currency, it means you are inviting investors to come and invest in your own country. We float our currency. The official rate by CBN is beyond description. No citizen can have access to funding in any bank and survive it because of the interest rate. Now, what is the CBN regulating in this kind of situation? Now, if you are busy hunting traders of currency, the Bureau de Change people, who are not the ones that determine the cost of the forest, because CBN gives them the forest at a particular rate, and they put little interest on it to also survive because they are registered to conduct that business, legitimately. Now, when there is no regulation, some of us that have traveled outside, we know how forests are being conducted. They are being regulated properly. What is government doing? What is CBN doing to regulate the collapse and devaluation of our national currency? So our problem is people in the power disaster policy disaster. It's a man-made disaster policy that led us to where we are today.
All right, so President Tinubu says Nigeria's economy is not in distress, that some people are just heightening this for a political agenda, that is just a teething problem that we're passing through, and very soon Nigerians will be smiling. Do you think he should be believed?
Well, I have not seen the foundation. First, I believe Bola Ahmed Tinubu will be much, much better than President Muhammadu Buhari before, because I have followed up his developmental skill, his ability to interface with every Nigerian, his level of simplicity. So I thought that his policy will have complete human face in dealing with the challenges that we are having. But basically, when you have sycophants around power, they are more deadly than corruption, because sycophancy breeds corruption. Now, those who believe in generating sycophancy, will mislead him into issues that he knows personally is not correct. If I could remember vividly during President Buhari, his former chief of staff, I saw him live telling the president, those who tell you that Nigeria is not suffering from food shortage, they are telling lies. There is sufficient food stuff in Nigeria. But this is where we are today. So it was a process that was inherited, and then instead of radical departure from that process that, suffocate the entire economy and the citizens, we maintain that, we make it more difficult for people to move on. And then you say the economy is doing well. Why is it doing well? What is the cost of diesel today? What is the cost of diesel? Now, virtually those industries and what have you run on diesel if there's no light. We have a prepared metering system. You pay based on your purchasing power of the units. You cannot even get the light. And then you have ministry that is suggesting, despite subsidy removal of petroleum, a minister is coming on air to suggest that they should remove subsidy on electricity generation. What kind of thinking are we having as a nation? Do we want to move on? Are we trying to avoid anarchy? The answer is no. You cannot come up with a policy that is thoroughly insensitive, and then the National Assembly is trying to extricate itself. The Senate President said no, that the governors have gotten excessive money.
Yeah, and that's the question, actually. Yeah. And that's where Nigerians are counting on you people in the opposition political parties to help them. If the government says it's releasing more monies, and the governors don't seem to be doing so much, shouldn't the opposition political parties help anti-graft agencies and all of that to unveil what exactly is going on? Because more money is coming to them, little development, little food, and all of that. So people are asking what's going on, because even the manufacturers are crying. I mean, the latest figure as at yesterday was that just last year, 767 manufacturing companies shut down operations, while 335 have become distressed at the moment. And people are saying that
show that the economy is functioning? Does that show that the economy is functioning? Now you talk about security agencies to help them. The security agencies are interested in dealing with elitist investigation. There is no security agencies or investigation agency, EFCC or ICPC, that cannot have access to the kind of ridiculous behavior going on in the local government between the states and the local government. It is part of their responsibility to investigate that. Local government account are transit accounts. Money will be transmitted in 1 minute, 2 minutes, the money have been taken out. And then you have agencies that can directly investigate local government. And what is going on? The former administration signed an executive order mandating directing the financial ministries to send money directly into the local government account. The governors fought it. Recently, the National Assembly did the same. Both local government elections, they worked on it. Local government autonomy, they worked on it. Now it has been sent to the states. The same governors are fighting it. And then you have state assembly that is not functioning. They don't understand the implication of sitting down in the state assembly where the governors are not being checkmated with their excesses, buying the most luxurious houses, luxurious, cars with array of convoy that take millions of naira of fuel, and then allowances of other security agencies, and you say things are normal. Does EFCC need to be told that the local government is dead? Do they need to be told to go and investigate the local government account? Well,
even some of the states look distressed, and they're having problems because some of them have irrevocable standing orders with banks, commercial banks, that once money jumps into the account, they are pulled off.
But because the deduction is from the source.
Yeah, direct from source. But as we try to round off this conversation, talk to us about President Bola Tinubu's administration since he assumed power. I mean, we're getting into the 9th month right now. Do you think that President Bola Tinubu is overwhelmed with the problems of Nigeria? He underrated what it means to run the federal government of Nigeria?
My thinking, to be very honest with you, maybe the security briefed before he took over wasn't comprehensive. Let me think that way. If it is comprehensive enough, maybe some of the decisions that have been taken, he wouldn't have taken that decision. Number two, I think there were hasty decisions that were taken without digesting them properly. Number three, there's an underestimation of the reaction of Nigerians. Typical of leaders of Nigeria, they will tell you nothing will happen, but something is happening. People are volunteering. I don't think there's any party that have the resources to mobilize protests against the government. We are not part of it. We will never be part of it. All we can do is to advise this government. We cannot be part of pulling down the roof. But the government must understand, and anyone who is telling people that this country is not grounded economically, there's sufficient food everywhere, he's not sincere to president. He doesn't love the president.
Well, you'll have heard the information minister actually saying that this is the president's thinking, that Nigeria's economy is not in distress, that people are just using it as a political agenda against his government.
I don't think the president will say that, because the president admitted publicly that he takes responsibility. He understands the sufferings because of decisions that we are taking. Now, if the president and the commander-in-chief, who says that the ball stopped at my own desk, I take responsibility fully. And he acknowledged this. If you remember Buhari's regime, Lai Mohammed, will come up with this. At later point, at a very long time, President Buhari will come and make some clarifications. I don't think President Bola should fall into that trap. What this government-owned Nigerians is to admit that things are wrong. How can we solve it? The moment you try to cover things, the more difficult it becomes for the country. What they need to do is to honor and say that, look, things are bad, we must face it. President said things are bad, I have to remove subsidy to survive. Now, when they were removing the subsidy, they said after removing the subsidy, there will be low-hanging fruit. That when you push your mouth, you get those fruits. We are not even seeing the high fruits, not to talk of the low-hanging fruit, which means that the economic system is not properly jiggled to go in tandem with the reality that we are facing as a nation. There's a starvation, there's lack of food. If you give anybody, I bet you, the contract of 3 billion to bring rice to shop rice into Nigeria, buy within Nigeria, you cannot find it anywhere. You cannot find it.
You are an experienced politician, Shehu Gabam, having been in the former ruling party, the PDP and all of that. Normally when you bring in a new government, you bring in a transition committee and all of that, you have lots of advisory before a new government comes in. And people are asking, I mean, this was a group of people who called themselves progressives, who had ideas on restructuring, ideas on reforming the economy. President Tinubu may not have been a soldier, and he may not be good in the issues of insecurity, but people are expecting a lot from him in terms of economy. Do you think that President Tinubu has been demystified, having come from Lagos? I mean, a lot of people saw him as coming from the most cosmopolitan state in Nigeria, and that he will replace that, he will bring that same magic that he's done in Lagos to the entire federation, and people are looking as if nothing is happening. Has it been demystified?
Being a governor of Lagos do not give you the privilege of understanding the dynamics of the Nigerian states at all. Lagos is a commercial capital of Nigeria.
But during the elections, I mean, this is what APC people told us.
Now, look, that foundation was laid by the former administration. Any president who comes in and spends 6 months before formation of cabinet must have crippled the economy. People have short memory. When President Buhari was sworn in, it took him 6 to 7 months to form a cabinet. Tell me any economy in this world that will not go on its knees. Any economy. Can a president of America stay 1 month without formation of cabinet? The day the president was sworn in, that day he will appoint key actors in his cabinet to help him think, to help him generate ideas. But people forgot that for 6 months, there was no government apart from the president.
So everybody was watching Buhari's body language.
And he said his body language. And that is the body language that we are suffering today. So
okay.
the issue is that he inherited a very terrible system. He inherited a system that changed our currency at the eve of election, that have affected the election. People cannot get access to their money in the bank, which violate the contractual agreement between the client and the bank. Market situation in the villages were crippled. If you brought out your chicken to sell, there's no cash to buy it. People forgot all these things that led to where we are today.
Well, so, Buhari was supported. I mean, people, the popular narrative was that it was against some people who were hoarding monies here and there.
You know, always the victims are the elites. Now, an average man would think that elite is the problem of Nigeria. And an average man do not understand that it's not every elite person that is in government. People do their business to survive. So if you do a ramped up decision and accuse virtually everybody because people are successful in business, you think they are getting free money from government, this is where you end up. The ordinary, the low profile, I mean the low class people of the society believe that Buhari is a miracle maker. But he has never been close to any miracle at all, economically and otherwise. And the political exigencies of the APC was extremely very poor.
And just before I let you go, I just had to step in because we were actually losing time. Just before I let you go, could it be that President Tinubu doesn't really want to tell Nigerians a lot of things that he found in government because he will still be offending former President Buhari, because he has said that he was going to continue Buhari's policies when he gets into power? Could it be that when he got in, he actually took a second look and he was like, wow, there's so much damage, and if I say it to Nigerians, it may be damaging my former colleague and then, of course, the party.
Now, if he thinks that way, means he has violated his oath of office. Because his oath of office is not about protecting one individual. It's about protecting every Nigerian, whether I've voted for him or not. Number two, his major concern is not the former president, who can fit himself till he died. His major concern is his constituency Nigerians and what was left behind. On the day of his swearing in, he said he will step on toes. Now the toes people are looking for, one is the Central Bank of Nigeria, the racketeering and profiteering of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Two, NNPC, the racketeering and profiteering of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Port Authority, Maritime Authority, the major institutions that supplies our economic base. What happened? What led to the disaster that we are going through? Unless he took the giant step he have taken in investigating thoroughly CBN, he moved to NNPC, he moved to those vital organs of government that will back up the economy. I don't see him going anywhere. Unfortunately, if I were him, I better tell Nigerians the truth than trying to protect an individual who have done and left the mess around.
Because even the investigation into the CBN, we don't really know what's going on with the report any longer. I mean, despite all that the government had told us that they would do. So just in 30 seconds, do you think that could have also been caught up in politics?
Well, I don't think any president can allow politics to derail his vision. What I thought of this president, because being in the opposition before, ruled as the governor of Lagos throughout in the opposition, is to galvanize the entire opposition forces together.
All right.
Generate ideas and conversation, robust conversation. What is the way forward? Nigeria has sufficient talent on ground, very vast. He needs to tap into them. He should not listen to his party alone to give him ideas. He should not listen to his aides alone to give, because they have shortage of ideas and knowledge of what to do with the economy. They are stranded right now. So they need multiple of layers of opinions that are practical, not theory, not lecturing in a classroom. Economy, it cannot work. Our budget must be people-oriented. You must diversify from theory budget that satisfies the elites to a practical budget that train 1 million plumbers, 1 million electricians, 1 million masons, 1 million fashion designer industries. In 6 months, this president can take over 60 million out of the street.
All right, very interesting. I'm very sure your former colleagues who were also in the opposition like you in those days will now be saying that you're helping them with ideas now that they're in government. But we must thank you so much. Shehu Gabam is the national chairman of the Social Democratic Party. And of course, you've always been here for us. We continue to thank you for helping not just us, but the government in power, because governance is a different ballgame when you get in there. But just before you get in, while in the opposition, it's sweeter to talk. But we must thank you so much for joining us.